All right, we're live, I think. Yep. Hello, everyone. I'm excited about this conversation, but I'm also like, can we just talk about live for a second? I just spoke yesterday at an event in front of like 225 people, and I was like maybe a little bit nervous, mostly excited, but for some reason, this like live thing, maybe it's just because I haven't done it. I'm always like kind of anxious leading up to it. So, we're going to jump right in. So, I'm not going to wallow in that anxiousness. We're going to jump right in. We're going to talk today about um, the S word. And if you're not in real estate, you probably don't know what we're talking about. So this is definitely for real estate agents, people getting into real estate, already in real estate. But you probably already know what it is, but it's the S word is splits. And it's something that I think prevents a lot of people from moving forward with opportunities that would solve probably a lot of their problems. Um, and it's just something that people get really hung up on. And so I just wanted to talk about the elephant in the room and share some thoughts that I hope will make more sense to you once we go through this together. So this won't be super long. But hopefully it will start a conversation, and then I'll share something at the end that will give opportunity for us to continue that conversation. So why are we so hung up on splits? I think the main reason is just obvious. Like, nobody who wants to leave money on the table. Nobody. So we don't want to leave money on the table. And I think the thing I hear a lot of is just like, well, I don't want to do double the work to net the same amount of money. And when I hear that, I know instantly that, there's just like a misunderstanding of financials in this business. There's not a whole lot of education about real estate business financials. I mean, I think business in general out there, right? No matter what business you're in, but certainly for sure in real estate. And so we're going to just break it down today. Splits is in other industries, in other business, it's really expenses, right? So we have our revenue, we have expenses, and then we have our net income. And for some reason in our industry, we just really glorify the revenue, we glorify our commission, and we don't often talk about or know even who and what people are netting. And so we have these people that are speaking on stages, throwing out these huge numbers, and then you find out, they're actually barely even profitable. And so splits is really just another way that we refer to business expenses. And so before we talk about those, we have to talk about what is the definition of a business. So in my mind, a business has to be repeatable and consistent. It doesn't mean you don't go through different seasons or shifts in the economy and markets and all of that. But if you are doing very low production and you really don't know how to make business happen, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but you really don't yet have a business. And so this conversation really only applies if you have one or you want to have one. I recognize that there's a lot of people in real estate that got into this just to do a few deals. You're a teacher and you thought, gosh, I could sell some real estate over the summer and pay for a family vacation. This is not going to be a conversation that's really relevant to you. So again, this is for business people or people who want to have a business in real estate, which means that your business is repeatable. You know how to make it happen again, or it's consistent. And so if you think about any business, let's just say, XYZ widgets, you're selling widgets and you only sell, I don't know, like 3 widgets a year. Well, probably safe to say that your expenses are going to be really low to maybe even non-existent. You might have hardly any expenses. That's pretty obvious, right? The less business that you do, the less expenses you're going to have. There's less cost of sale, less expenses. So that's why I see people that have really low production, they cannot for the life of them fathom how they would have expenses that are at, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70% of their business. But if you talk to any other industry, our margins in real estate are really healthy, really good. And so my husband's in construction. I know people in the restaurant business, like their margins are much different than what we're used to. And so, because people don't talk about this very often, people aren't really quite aware of what people who are actually doing a consistent and good amount of business are seeing as expenses. And I was lucky enough before I got into the business that I read this book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And so in this book, they interviewed thousands of real estate agents across the country, and they analyzed all of the financials, and they came up with this is called an economic model. And so at different levels of income, right, and this would totally make sense if you think of it in the realm of any business, the more business you're doing, you're going to have a different margin or different level of expenses that you're going to see and different net profit. So just as an example, when you are doing up to 180,000 in gross commission, according to this model, they saw an average net of 55%, which means that the agents were spending roughly 45% on business expenses. If you go up to 500,000, you get, to take advantage of some economies of scale, and you might do a little better at 50%. And then it goes down from there to 39% net income, 42% net income as you get up to 800 and 1.2 million in commission. So there is a model for this, and I think that a lot of people kind of get hung up on this stuff, but it's usually because they're doing hardly any business. Most of their business is probably buyers, so their really only expense there is like driving people around in their car, and or they've done a couple listings and they actually don't really invest in selling their listings. They just might do some professional photography, get a sign installed, but there's really no marketing plan. But most businesses have expenses, okay? And if you want to have a consistent business in real estate, you would at some point have to invest in the business. And so let's talk about what we saw here. So, and in all the P&Ls that I've seen agents come through here that have been spending 45% on expenses. I've seen agents that are spending 60% on expenses, and I've actually even had people I know that are at maybe 90%. They're having, they're on a small team or have a small team, and they are really only netting about 10%, which is so hard because you're usually doing a ton of work and netting very, very little, which is very frustrating. And so it's very, very normal to see between 40 and 60%. I would say best in class is going to be maybe 30 to 40% on expenses. And that's probably, again, not investing a ton into customer retention, customer acquisition, marketing, or administrative support. And so a lot of times, if people are experiencing a higher profit, they're usually super overwhelmed. They're doing a lot of the pieces themselves. They have no margin. And so it's like you're paying the price somewhere. Usually it's both if you have maybe slightly lower expenses. But the people that I see that are doing a really great job selling consistent business, I have yet to see a P&L cross my desk, and I look at a lot of them that they're doing better than about 35, 40-ish%. So when you think of it that way, we're no longer talking about a 50% delta. That I don't want to do double the work to net the same amount. Well, you shouldn't have to, right? Because the team takes on your business expenses. And so, really, if you're no longer paying those, then you have, right, you're getting 50%. We're really only talking about maybe 10, maybe 15% growth that you would have to experience in your business in order to see the economic, sense in that. But on top of that, what's not talked about is all of the time. So I think when people try to conceptualize this, they think, well, I'm going to do double the business and net the same amount of money, when really it's no, you already have expenses if you have a business. So let's say you're killer awesome at running your business frugally. You probably spend at least 30% on expenses. Okay? So we're really only now talking about 20% of a delta. Okay? And this is if you're really awesome, best in class. 20% delta, well, guess what? We take about 75 to 80% of the administrative tasks off of the agent's plates and have all of the systems built out. Everything's plug and play. And so it saves you a ton of time. And if you are great at sales, guess what? Time is money, and you would be better off investing your time into doing more sales or enjoying your life, right? Getting some margin back, getting some time back. And that's what we provide. So it's not about doing double the work for the same amount of money. That would be insane. Who would sign up for that? And so it's not 50%, it's probably closer to 10 or 15%. And I'm super confident that when you come here with us and you invest your time and your resources and your work, and I know that together we could definitely grow your business by 10 or 15%. I'm pretty confident that we can help you grow it by 30, 50 or more, right? Depending on your business structure now. And so another analogy that I find really useful, since we're talking to real estate professionals here, is for sale by owners. And really any seller. Why would they pay you to sell their house? Why wouldn't they just sell it on their own? Why do you pay a CPA? You just do your taxes online yourself. You don't need to pay a CPA, right? Why do we suggest that people invest in a real estate professional? And why do we, for the most of us, right, invest in paying a CPA to do something that we could do ourselves? Just because you can do it yourself doesn't mean you should do it yourself, right? There's YouTube. You could probably figure out how to put a new roof on your house. You probably don't do that yourself. You probably hire someone to do it. So the reason why we expect people to invest and pay a commission to us is because we know that we can net them more money. We also know that they're going to have a better experience doing it with an agent, right, than doing it on their own. It's going to take way less time. We have a process we're going to walk them through. We're going to take a ton off their plate so they don't have to worry about it. And they're going to sell their house for more money than they would on their own. It's statistically proven. Okay? And they're probably going to be less stressed doing it with a professional agent. Just the same, you can do this on your own. Absolutely. I have agents that have been here for 8-9 years. They know how to sell real estate. They don't need to do it here. They choose to do it here because they focus on net income and they focus on their hourly rate. So many of y'all are out there worried about splits, and I hate to break it to you, but you are costing yourself way more than any split. You are costing yourself opportunity. You're costing your family growth and consistent income. There's a lot of costs associated with trying to do this yourself. This isn't about not being able to do it yourself. It's about doing it in a way that is smarter and makes more sense. There's so many hats that you have to wear in real estate. If you want to wear them all and you are fulfilled and you're doing the amount of business you want and you have no pain point and you don't have any desire to grow, guess what? Who cares about splits? It doesn't matter. But if you want to grow, if you are not where you want to be, or you're doing the amount of production you want, but you are tapped out for time, please have an open mind. They say the biggest expense in business is a narrow or closed mind. And I think that until you really sit down and do the math and really understand how just general business works, I can show you that it actually makes more sense. Or I've just got like an entire office here of people that are, I guess I'm just, that good at selling them something they don't need, or they're just really dumb. I don't know. They're not. So I think it's just a matter of being open-minded enough to explore the option and see if it might make sense. Again, this does not make sense if you don't want a real business in terms of consistency, right? And predictability and repeatability. This doesn't make sense for people who are just kind of dabbling and just want to sell a deal here and there. Absolutely do that on your own. You don't need leverage to do that. The other person, it doesn't make sense for is if you're just super happy with everything that you have. Like you are happy with your production, you're happy with your time, you're happy with your life. Like you're good, right? You don't really want any additional opportunities. You are happy on your own. That's perfect. But too many agents right now are struggling either with lack of production, or they've got the production and they don't have the time, and they are not open-minded to this because of this whole kind of rhetoric about, and these scripts that people say about, I don't want to do double and net the same amount. That is so inaccurate, and it's costing you money. So if you are interested in learning more about the math that is real estate, this is something I'm so passionate about because it really opened my mind. I would not be a part of Place had I been narrow-minded to the fact that, when I do a transaction, I'm also on a split. Because guess what? If you've taken nothing away from today, you have to understand that no matter who you are paying a split on every transaction. So if you want to know more about this, I'm hosting a webinar on September 30th. It's going to be at 12 o'clock, so same time. I'm going to share the link in the comments after this video, and I hope to see you there. I'm going to break down the math that is real estate, take all the mystery out, so any goal you have, you can plug this in and see exactly what to do, what you'll net, and build a business plan around any goal that you have. And I hope that you'll come. I think that even if you're not struggling as much as some, I think we could all stand to understand our business and our industry at a higher level. And I think when we have a higher level of understanding, we can make better decisions. When we have a more context, we can make more educated decisions, just like we want our clients to do, right? Just like the people that invest a portion of their proceeds from their sale in hiring you, right? They're expecting a return on that. There's a return on every expense, hopefully, right? And so if you are interested in learning more, come to my webinar on the 30th. I'm going to talk more in depth about that. It'll be an hour webinar. I know you'll walk away from that with a ton of information that will be helpful to you in this business, whether you're just starting out or you've been in the business for a long time, because it just doesn't get talked about. So I hope to see you there. I hope this at least opened your mind to, the conversation. And if we can learn to have open minds and have conversations, I think we'll all be better for it. So I'll see you on the 30th at noon, and I'll drop the link below. Thanks for tuning in today.